When I say that humanity progresses over time, I'm not just observing the obvious, which should be enough to back up that statement, right? I mean, look around, look at prior generations, look at cavemen, like, come on. Humanity marches on, we progress. But I'm also looking at the work of academics, of anthropologists, of people like I will say the name as long as it's relevant, Professor Steven Pinker at Harvard, who in his book Better Angels of Our Nature and in his TED Talk, The Surprising Decline in Violence, has shown irrefutably, academically, that not only are we living in the most peaceful times in human history, but human violence is on the decline. We are getting less and less violent every single day. Quality of life is improving. Technology increases exponentially. And when you put all these elements together and you look at government, you first wake up to its nature. You first wake up to the fact that when they tell you what its purpose is, that you shouldn't trust it. You shouldn't trust them, because their real purpose is to keep the super rich getting richer at the expense of the rest of us. And they're doing a pretty darn good job right now. But historically speaking, they've been, how do I put this academically, less shitty. They have been, you go to the past, they are shittier, right? Their governments get less shitty over time. You think about how violence in the world, interhuman violence, is primarily done in the name of government, whether it's by soldiers or police. I mean, why as libertarians do we care so much about government? Why do we do what we do? Well, if you look around the world, it's easy to say 90+% of the violence is done in the name of governments. And of the rest, by the drug war, economic desperation, I'd probably say 90% of that is caused indirectly by governments, even if not done in their name directly, right? So when I say that government gets less shitty over time, it's not just that it gets less violent, but that as we get more connected globally as a society, governments have to compete. They can't get away with what they used to. You talk about crimes and sources of human suffering and injustice. I mean, unless you want to choose some other abstract like anger or hunger, what is the greatest source of avoidable? I mean, those things are avoidable too, but like really avoidable human suffering in the world, the greatest sources of injustice, it's government. And because humanity progresses, we should have a very positive expectation. And I love being able to see this unfold every day in the headlines. And I think we get to see it now in our lifetimes, because this is an exponential process. Perhaps our parents could say that they saw a lot of change in their lifetimes compared to prior generations, and perhaps their parents could say the same thing. That's kind of the nature of exponential change, but we can kind of take out the mathematical curve and say, from the element of the human experience or the perspective of human consciousness, this experience of being alive, every generation gets to say we experience so much more than the one before. And yet after you go back a few generations, you're out of the curve of this exponential part of the graph, right? It's relatively flat. The first 200,000 years of the human experience, hunters and gatherers, subsistence, humans in a nasty, brutish, and short kind of life. And now we're at the hockey stick of this crap. And we have come into a new era of governments very quickly becoming much, much, much less shitty. Not only is that something to enjoy and to watch unfold in the news, but this should be our expectation, to anticipate a new experience for humanity without this burden, without war. I mean, as much as we want to complain about the military-industrial complex, what was the last time humanity let our governments get away with a real good war? It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah. Go team people. And I think now we get to watch, we get to see it happen in real time more than ever before in the human experience. Governments just getting less and less shitty every single day. And that's the theme for our show today. Welcome to Adam versus the Man. Today is, what is it? It's Wednesday. What the fuck Wednesday? Is that what we're calling this now? April 14, 2021. Welcome to the show. Good morning, Gardenia. It's a beautiful day here. If you hadn't noticed, new studio backdrop. Love it. Thank you, G.I. Mary Jane, Joey Lee. Yes, look at this. I would touch this. I would lean against it and fall asleep standing up, except I get too much hair product and makeup on it. But other than that, like this, I want to live in this studio foam. It's awesome. And Joey did such a great job getting it up. I hope everybody likes it. And we're not done with the studio. We have to do the ceiling and the wall here. But I think already, I mean, even with my shitty hearing, like I can hear a difference. That there's no echo in the room, or less, way less. Although you might hear the wind today. We have a freakishly windy day here in Gardenia. I got a weather advisory alert yesterday on my phone that said we were going to have gusts of up to 50 miles an hour. Crazy stuff in Gardenia here. But check out the Instagram page. Producer CJ, CEO CJ, filling in for executive producer Jim today is at the helm. CJ, you want to give us the producer notes?
Morning, Adam. Which one of you fine folks were tinkering around in our?
Yeah, someone added these name blocks. Is that what those are?
Which one of you guys did that? I leave for just a little bit, Adam. I come back and everything's discombobulated. No, you and Jim and the co-host crew have been doing a great job. So I can fill in when Jim needs a day off. So you're just tuning in now. I did see a comment earlier. The classic, Adam, where you been? Haven't seen you on the internet in a while. I'm like, no, we've been here Monday through Friday, every work day, every work week through all the BS and but yeah. Let's see promos here. Let's see if I can get back to it. AdamVersusTheMan.com is the one-stop shop for Adam versus the Man and all things that you need. You can find at the bottom of our page, our Patreon, if I can get to it. It doesn't seem to want to go. Uh-oh. Am I being shut down? Can you still hear me, Adam?
Yes.
Come in, Adam.
I'm frozen.
Something's going on. Either way, go to our Patreon where you can help support this broadcast with $1, $5, $10, or $50 a month. But $10 a month is where it's at. That gets you access into our private Telegram chat. By comparison, we have our public Telegram chat, which again, it's been just too long for me, which you can find at t.me. Maybe somebody can give me a little hand here because t.me/Adam versus the Man there. And that's the public Telegram channel. That's where you find our show notes. That's where you'll find if you're the public and you just want to comment on the show in a way that you'll know we'll see it, outside of your mainstream sources. That's the best way to go. Let's see here. We got the store. I want to point out to everybody something that the Jim, he kind of covered yesterday. But if you go up when you're sorting and go to latest, you're going to see what we add in the latest additions to the store. We went from Freedom panties and boxers, and then it was like, well, it's been a while since we put something else. We got this awesome Freedom clock where you're always on Freedom time, and an Adam versus the Man stainless steel travel mug, some pins, and a new Freedom backpack. And that Freedom backpack looks really cool. It's a black backpack with the white lettering. It's going to be stitched in really well. So I think that would probably be the one that I'd want to get. And then our affiliate program, Cigar Federation. Cigar Federation, where promo code Adam10, Adam all caps 10 gets you 10% off your order at Cigar Federation, and they've got plenty of incredible cigars to choose from. The CBD infused JSK Nugs are Adam's favorite, so if you end up with one of those, make sure to tag him, especially over on Instagram at the Garden of Freedom, where you can see some awesome pictures from Gardenia and all things freedom. Let's see here. What's new here? We got the kitty. We've got the puppies. We got a homeboy chilling by the fire.
So yeah, hold on. I got some updates to explain there. Excuse me. Sorry, I jumped ahead of you smoking weed every day. There,
I didn't even get to the button.
But no, that puppy picture in the top left, that's Thelma and Louise. Those are the two puppies we're getting here in just a few weeks when they're ready to get away from their mom. But we went and visited them yesterday and gave them some treats and some names and introduced them to their big little sister, Marilyn. And if you look at the picture below that, that's another one Joey took. That's Marilyn with our pregnant cat, Muffin, with her hand around her, being so adoring, and she's so good at being a big sister to all the kitties too. And then we got Patrick Lewis here, and that's him sitting by the fire.
Pat Rock 420.
420 Pat Rock.
420 Pat Rock. Pat Rock 420. How about this? You should put the number at the end. Anyways, yeah, no, that's awesome. Look at that great.
CJ, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think Pat was actually looking to really relaunch a YouTube he's got a YouTube presence that he's sort of dabbled with, hasn't really gotten serious with, and might be, now that he's here and has the resources in the studio ready to get serious. And I think he was gonna be reaching out to you. I just send everybody production questions. Go ask CJ.
Yeah. Let me tell you, Telegram is usually the best way to get a hold of me. I'm not saying that I'm not a person. I don't live on Telegram, but that is the best way to get a hold of me. But Adam, I got a question for you. Do you want to take the extra step to care for the environment?
Always.
Are you looking for to go off grid more?
I don't think I can.
Or do you want to lower or even eliminate your electric bill? Well, if so, I've got the great website for you to go to at GoGreenEnergy.com. I'm so excited that you got that wind turbine out there. It looks so cool watching you guys put all that up there. And Jay Nygaard, the turbine guy, love seeing him on the show. So GoGreenEnergy.com for your energy needs. I'm not as good as Jim at reading that, though. And then we do have, again, the Crypto 6. The website's down for some reason. We'll keep watching that on promos throughout the day and see if there's any updates through the website there. And then last but not least, in our Telegram, we do have the GoFundMe for Jim. I want to remind people of when you do get a chance, if you can help Jim out. He's not here, so it's a good chance to talk about him, since he don't like to talk about himself. And help Jim out where you can. Other than that, Adam, let's get to the co-host for the day.
All right, John Evans. Welcome back to What the Fuck Wednesday with John. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, brother.
Are you smoking weed this morning?
Always smoking, Adam.
All right, well then let's have our musical break at this point.
Smoke weed every day. Hold up. Smoke weed every day. Hold up. Smoke weed every day. Smoke weed every day.
It's funny because aside from calling this Adam versus the Man, I think Smoke Weed Every Day with Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre has been like the most long-running tradition on the show at this point.
Gotta smoke weed every day.
I'm sure it'll pass it. So I mean, it's at some point. I mean, we won't stop. Well, I need to do a detox. I really do need to take a break for like a week. But will we ever like not other than that like not smoke weed every day on the show? I mean, even if I were taking a break from smoking weed, I'd still take like a hit symbolically on the show every day.
I haven't stopped smoking weed since I started smoking weed when I was 13, and we're almost to fit where I would say it's got to at least go until all 50 states are legal.
How old are you now?
Me, 39.
If you're gonna time out your weed smoking by your age, so 26 years. Now, is that like 26 years absolute consistent every single day use, or you take? I mean, I'm sure at some point he's thinking about it. At some point, you've had to have taken breaks, right?
I mean, yeah, I've taken breaks, but it's been pretty damn consistent. I would say nonstop since at least 22.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because when you're a kid, yeah, from age 13, it's kind of hard to get it consistently. So, have you taken any deliberate breaks? Because and it's been a while for me. I think it's been like 6 months actually. I've been really good about taking my vitamins consistently for 6 months. But no, I like to take a break every few months for like a week and just sort of let make sure that because maybe this is only valuable when you have shitty supply and you're smoking paraquat and you need to let the paraquat get out of your system. That's the shit they used to spray on Mexicans weed, right? As pesticide, right? As paraquat or like cheap big outdoor grows. And I'm 39 too, so when we were smoking weed, like when I was smoking weed in high school, Native American prep school in Road, New Mexico, late 90s. Man, history, living history right here. I'm a speaking fossil, walking, talking fossil. But yeah, it was in the late 90s in New Mexico. We still got, I think it was like $80 ounces of Mexican brickweed because it was like right across the. I mean, remember, it sounds really cheap. But in the late 90s, like what's that in today's dollars? Like what the market has fluctuated so much by bigger forces, and I'm still watching. Well, no, we just finished Narcos Mexico season 2. So, but even seeing how Sensimilla was without seeds just developed in the 80s? Was it the 80s, Joey?
Late 70s, early 80s.
Late 70s, early 80s. It was just then in humans' knowledge of cannabis that we discovered you could isolate female plants from male plants, and that for producing bud, the male plants were not only relatively useless, but detrimental because they put off the pollen that created seeds and all the buds.
Yeah,
and
you want to kill those things.
Yeah, so kill all the dudes, right? Yeah, that's it. Well,
keep one around.
Yeah, right. That was
with the patriarchy.
yeah, you only need one. But that was the innovation of the Mexican weed to the United States drug game in that period, and even that with cartels in Mexico caused massive price fluctuations that had more to do with prohibition and distribution circumstances than the actual cost of production. And now, even in the United States, you look at like what most Americans are smoking, which is like pretty potent mid-grade or low-grade dispensary quality weed, and we're starting to get to like what it costs to grow, but we're still not. Joey? What would you say the just average recreational retail ounces in the U.S.? Joey would have a sense of this, right?
$300 to $400.
Like
$300 to $400 retail. $300 to $400.
Yeah, depending where.
Ouch.
Okay.
I mean,
Retail where it's legal
where
at a rec dispensary.
$300 to $400.
$300 to $400 an ounce. No,
That's a bit pricey.
That would be $50 an eight. Well, for really top shelf stuff, right?
$60 eight.
Yeah, but that's at the eighth quantity. There's still a significant markdown per ounce quantity buy.
So you can get $100 ounces in Colorado.
So that's what so cutting edge of economic development, right? Colorado, where you've had a recreational market, at least able to develop into the existing tax and bullshit regulatory structure there. You get $100 ounce, right? And that's now we are approaching, and it's going to be a curve. Like you're going to see, like if you could chart ounce street prices of cannabis over time, it's going to go down. It's sort of plateaued all over the place over the course of the drug war, and then legalization starts to come way down, and then there's a point where it comes down fast, and then it's going to kind of level back off again as it approaches its actual cost of production, distribution, marketing, etc. Right? And $99 an ounce is still not even close to that. At $99 an ounce of recreational in Colorado, Joey, how much that's out the door, or is that
No,
pre-tax?
that's pre-tax.
Okay, so pre-tax $100, but that's pre-retail sales point taxes. There's still a shit ton of taxes and regulatory burdens built into that cost right now, right? What would you estimate that would be out of that?
At least a third of it.
At least a third you can point to as taxes, right? And probably another third as increased government-induced price increases that are sort of cannabis regulatory specific within that, right? I mean, a huge cost that you don't think about, unseen cost, is what is the cost of uncertainty in the regulatory environment that prevents massive investment, where investors are looking at, if I'm going to drop $1 million on a business, am I going to put it into cannabis, where if the regulations at the state level change next election cycle, this business model is defunct, my investment is valueless? Or do I put it in gold or silver or restaurants or some other business as opposed to cannabis, right? And that unseen cost means that we don't get this decrease in the cost of cannabis coming all the way down. But just in those sort of identifiable costs, in that $100 ounce, we can show that it really should be closer to about $30 an ounce.
Oh, yeah.
And at that point, it's cheap, like already compared to when I was in high school. Like, holy fuck! I mean, if you took high school Adam and put him today and was like, "Hey, dude, this is what weed's gonna be like by the time you're, adulting," you go, "Whoa, fuck, damn, this is like we just go to the store and buy it." Like, wow, okay. But my fantasy that I've had since at least 2013 is that you're gonna have like weed maps developed to the point where you click on. They're going to be points of grows around you that are hooked into a drone delivery system. And on the map, each one is going to have a number, and that's minutes by drone to your exact location. And then you're going to click on it, and a menu is going to pop up. And you're going to get to just pay digitally, and then at that number of minutes later, that drone finds your phone and drops weed out of the sky into your waiting hands. It could be a joint and a lighter drops out of the sky anywhere in the United States on the drone delivery. And this might be something like broader than weed. It might be Amazon. It might be like a new company that does that masters the drone delivery market for everything. And every little mom and pop, it's just, you drone stuff from here to there like it's no big deal. And you set up a retail point. You have a facility that can be a drone retail building, and all you need is electricity and a landing pad and a way to load stuff up. That's it. Anyway, back to weed. You see how we need sidebar and have some fun conversations.
New Mexico just legalized weed for recreational purposes, I think. That's what they were saying on the news last night. I didn't read too much into it.
One more. It's not even news. New Mexico. Who lives in New Mexico anyway? I used to live there. Nobody important lives in New Mexico. What? Gary Johnson lives in New Mexico. And there was a sex scandal I decided not to cover in the news today out of New Mexico. And I was like, no. So I lived in New Mexico, just to explain why. I love New Mexico, just to correct the record. And honestly, people in New Mexico, by and large, better than the average state in the United States. I'll say that. No, I love the people in New Mexico. Cool communities. Native communities there around the Pueblos, very cool, a lot of interesting people. And remember, I went to high school in New Mexico at the Native American prep school. That's where I was buying $80 shitty ounces full of seeds. And even though it was Sinsemilla, it was still had seeds. It was just a lot less seeds than naturally weed would have before that. But Native American prep school, 63 students, 32 tribes represented, including one of the tribes of Israel here. No, I was the only white student. That was the experience in my high school.
I had that in junior high. That was fun.
But if it wasn't for the federal government, New Mexico and would be an artist community in Santa Fe, a gas station in Albuquerque, and the native communities, and they'd probably be better off. But because of the federal government, you have a bunch of military bases. You have Los Alamos, you have Sandia, you have a bunch of major corporations that have been bribed by lower tax burdens to locate in New Mexico. And if it wasn't for, well, you have some pretty good skiing too, actually. Taos is awesome. The Earthship community there. I went to the Earthship Academy in Taos, New Mexico. The gorge there is amazing. The Gorgeous Gorge. If you want to go see it, right outside Taos on the way to the Earthship community. Amazing stuff. Yeah. You go on my Instagram back years, you can find all that cool stuff. But we were talking about weed. So the weed price coming down to like $30 an ounce. John, how would that change your life?
Not much, unless it got better.
Well, how much? Well, it would be you'd have unlimited selection, better quality control, precise terpene profiles for everything, and an ability to select for strains. I mean, you basically custom design strains and find one somewhere in the country, someone is growing exactly what you want in an industrial scale, organic quality, hydro or something like that. Whatever you want, really, it gets to that level of variety and that much cheaper. Like it becomes almost boring, like alcohol. Except that it won't be the liquor store because it needs a little more of a perishable product. It'll be delivered by drone in retail. But no,
Sounds like Amazon.
What do you pay now? How do you?
I pay about a little less than 20 an ounce.
You pay less than 20 an ounce?
I live pretty close to the border.
Oh, but that's Mexican trash compactor outdoor dirt weed, right?
Usually, yeah. But I mean, you can get other stuff, and then it's going to be real interesting here because New Mexico just legalized it, and then Mexico just legalized it, and we're right here. Yeah. And concentrates that are coming from north were about like 50, 60 a couple years ago. That stuff's gone down to about 20, 25 a gram down here, if you're lucky.
Wow. So what would you say, Joey?
The high-grade black market, you can get an ounce for like $80.
Okay, black market, you can get dispensary $80 ounces if you're sidestepping the bureaucracy and you manage that overhead of organizing liability, just lose a little convenience. Okay, so right, and we just paid $60 for an eighth, which is crazy if you think about it, because that's $320 per ounce. That's insane. Like, and I don't mind doing that and supporting dispensaries right now and bringing up the industry, but we are on the verge of that not being a thing. And actually, prices have gone up, unfortunately, dispensaries recently, because the current legalization framework is such that it really restricts production, right? It can't, at least in like there's such a licensing and regulatory and business overhead setup burden and quantity restrictions that right now with the market demand growing even over the last year, the development of production and distribution has really lagged behind, and that's about to catch up. Like basically, here's the big takeaway from all this ranting and rambling about weed is that weed is about to be a superfluous commodity where everyone in America, like food at least, can afford more or less whatever they want whenever they want. And I'm not saying we're there yet with food, but we're actually close to that with food too. Although why do we have shitty food? Mainly because Americans make shitty food choices through processed shit at the grocery store. But we are on the verge of weed being similarly available. I should say cannabis when I'm saying something so nice about it. We're about we're about to have cannabis as cheap and readily available, and in the same kind of diversity as food is in America. And there's going to be a health revolution around this. There's going to be a consciousness revolution around this. This is why I say we're past the beginning of the end of the drug war. We are now in the middle of the end of the drug war, and we can see this shift on the horizon, right?
It sure seems like it. It seems like weed's going to be all around, and it's going to be a bit better. People are a little bit nicer when they're stoned, in my opinion. I'm a little bit nicer.
What I think is the major social change that's happening is from older generations smoking pot, because it's and some of it's like boomers who grew up with it and haven't smoked in decades, or like they smoked a little bit in high school, and it was really shitty weed, right? Even the Mexican trash compactor, shitty bottom grade weed was shittier, significantly shittier than the shittiest stuff you can find today, right? So they might have smoked it and it had paraquat. Like that's back when that shit was common. I don't think it's still common. But when they were spraying that weed in outdoor fields with nasty pesticides, and inorganic fertilizers and who knows what else to mass produce stuff that would get you a buzz. And compared to today's weed, yeah, this is an argument that prohibitionists make. It's not a legit argument for prohibition at all, but it is totally true that yes, this is not your grandpa's weed. Like this
Not
is,
at all.
like, it is a whole other, and the potent. But that argument is silly because even back then, if you wanted to distill it down to extracts and have, mostly pure THC as an extract, you could get hash. I remember hash used to be a thing. It's like finger hash. Like, I guess this, I don't, maybe it's just I don't do it because I have superfluous flour, but I remember that like you could get shitty trash compactor weed, or they get the finger hash that people would make and probably, rolled by day laborers in Mexico, just going like this until it, flakes off and then compacting it into, cakes. This would be your Moroccan hash, right? Anyway,
I used to get finger hash off my hands when I grew it.
Yeah.
And then cutting them, you're going to get all sticky and full of the crap, and then just roll it up, and that's about as good as you can get. I think I've
How were you growing? I didn't know you grew.
I had a house in when they legalized it in Colorado in 2012. Me and Maria kind of just up and left and went to Colorado for 4 years, and we had a nice little operation going there.
So is that like a house size grow where you have one room for veg and a few rooms for flower?
Well, okay, I had the living room closet, the bedroom closet, had a table in it that I boxed in, had vents running all throughout it, and then we were in a fourplex, an old Victorian style house, built in the early 1900s, big place. It was divided into 4 apartments. We had the bottom apartment, but we were the only people that had access to the building's unfinished basement. So we just went in there and slightly finished it. And then threw some new electrical and ventilation, and it worked pretty well for a while.
So what were you producing? Are you comfortable saying? I mean, it's probably like no liability, if anything, at this point, right?
It's been years. Gosh.
You were breaking federal law, obviously.
No, not me.
Yeah, right.
We had our 12 plant limit with our 3,000 watt lights.
So were you selling to dispensaries?
No, man. We smoked so much we could even if we had like the whole state of California growing weed for us, we'd probably still be running out.
All right. I'm glad that I'm a lightweight. I'm grateful for that. Maybe it's because I detox every now and then I stay that way. But no, I'm like I like the new weeds, too potent for me. Yeah, no, I gotta sip it. Like I almost like when I go to dispensaries, I ask for their weakest stuff because it's cheaper and I like to enjoy smoking a little bit. But yeah, I'll be able to get that dialed in, right? For someone like that now, my choices are actually relatively limited. But yeah, I don't envy that you're a bottomless pit for cannabis that way, sir.
It
So anyway,
does kind of.
the last point I'll make about weed. Now that we're over half an hour into the show, and Pat still has to, or John still has to announce his comment contest here. By the way, I saw earlier. Someone said you need a freedom flag behind you. It's like no, we have freedom on the screen. It's freedom is in front of us. We put freedom front first. Freedom. We lead with free. See how that works? All right.
No, it made sense with your
this.
finger pointing up right there, or it was on this side. Stupid camera. Yeah, you got it. It makes sense.
I'm just justifying not changing this awesome studio background now because it looks so
It
cool.
looks pretty nice, actually.
But the last point I'll make here is that when I saw even medical cannabis getting out being a common thing, what I said was going to be a critical turning point was when the older voting bloc of Americans saw their neighbors smoke weed for dementia or glaucoma or chronic pain and be like, oh yeah, and I just get a little buzz and it's kind of nice and I don't mind being like this all the time, and go, oh, well, can I try some? And that was a process that I started seeing happen. I don't know. I mean, obviously, as soon as it got medical, somebody had that experience, right? And like shared it with their neighbor at the retirement home. And that's great. But, I said, I got Ernie Hancock used to say about older generations and statism in general. We're just going to have to wait for some people to die. And then McCain died. And we're like, okay, that's enough. You're not have to wait anymore. But it's like, no, we don't have to wait for a second. He's like, is John McCain, think about it, you remember John McCain. Would he ever really get stoned and let that enlighten him about the nature of government and be like, yeah, man, we really are full of shit and we need to admit that? Like, no, of course not. He's way like, but today's generation, I think that the oldest people today, and I don't want to generalize or sound like I'm age discriminating or hating on older people because I is one now, but there's a point where they go through that adjustment. The people who have been denied cannabis and people who need it, whether it's because for them it works, like for me, just I could go with it without it just as a general life enhancer, and I've used it to control symptoms of PTSD and anxiety, and I fucking love it for that. But for the people who are better off with it as a permanent adjustment, that's like a whole layer of social angst removed. Remember, right now, what's government pushing? We covered this a couple months ago. Bigger meth busts than ever. And I've been thinking, in our libertarian analysis, we don't often recognize enough that if some major world event or trend is happening, it's happening because at least one of the major world government superpowers wants it to happen. That's China or the United States government. So if meth is flooding into the United States around last summer's hot summer of anger around George Floyd, which is now coming back, and hey, what do you know? There's a lot of meth on the streets. Sounds like it was kind of designed that way. I don't want to. This is where I'm like, it's just a theory. But there's definitely I'm making a conspiracy theory about the motivations in a way that I think might never even be on record. It might have been a handful of whispers. But hey, let's crank up the meth distribution this summer and see how that affects the riots and protests in Detroit and Seattle.
Yeah, I'm sure government would never use drugs to try to influence the population.
Right, and I just go echoes of crack in the 80s in LA, right? And by the way, just to put this back to the show, going back, since we just hit 600 episodes a while ago, I think it was in the 2013 version of Adam versus the Man, I interviewed the real Freeway Ricky Ross, not the bullshit artist rapper who ripped off his name, who's a former jail guard, by the way. But the real Ricky Ross and Freeway Rick Ross, he was, the CIA's crack connection in the 80s, getting it out all around LA. And man, you think they're going to stop doing that today?
Probably not. But
Either way.
the war on drugs is a war on people.
Hey, look at that, CJ. You want let's roll a minute of this for nostalgia's sake, shall we?
$1 million worth. He pioneered, if you want to use that term, the use of crack in the epidemic as it was described in Los Angeles during the time, but his business extended all across the United States thanks to the CIA, the Contras in Nicaragua, and one Oscar Blandón, who made the whole thing possible. The last time we spoke to Mr. Ross, we talked about his experiences. You can check the link below for that full interview. But today, we're going to talk about the lessons from that and his political perspective and what it meant to do that much volume in sales and drugs in terms of the politics of the day and what you take away from that with years of perspective after doing some serious hard time. Mr. Ross, thank you so much for joining us again today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Adams. You know, it's always a pleasure to be on your show.
You know, when our last interview dropped, there were some people going, wait a second. He went, his choices were between being a professional tennis player and being a cocaine drug kingpin. And a lot of people pointed out that the seeming divergence there. But this started when you were 19 years old and you were motivated to get into the drug game because you couldn't afford the nicer things. And like you said, one of the things you wanted to do was to make cocaine more affordable. But if you can go back to where you were at 19, what was your orientation towards government there? I don't mean politically, but what was your attitude towards government at age 19 when you made that decision?
I don't think I had a perspective on government. Government didn't even matter to me. You know, the only thing that I knew is that there was a powers that be, and the closest to government that I knew was the police. I didn't feel that had been treated fairly by the police, even in my younger days. You know, I had been made to get out of the car and lay down on the ground. I've been searched as if I had guns or drugs before I ever started selling drugs. And this is when I was still a tennis player, before I'd ever started committing any crime.
So your attitude towards government was defined by your relationships with the police?
Absolutely. I mean, they were the only government authority that I came in contact with. You know, I never saw a senator, I never saw a congressperson, and for sure, you know, I never saw a president or a senator or anything like that.
So did you have some sense of appreciation for the police, for the legitimate public safety services that they were providing, or was it all the antagonistic kind of things that you mentioned?
Absolutely none.
Well, if I may play devil's advocate, isn't there some positive effect of the presence of police where you were growing up? I mean, in your communities, isn't there some value provided by the police?
Well, in my perspective, I didn't, because when I was coming up, the ones that I saw as my protector was people like the Black Panthers, the US, and you know, the police fought with them. So my older brother was hit in the mouth when I was a kid, and it was done by the police. So my perspective of the police had always been to control me, to keep me in my place, to stop me from crossing the line. Let me say this here, Adam. When I was around 10 years old, my mom, I had got hit in the back of the head. I was out working with my uncles in the hayfield, in a tree, riding in a truck, and a tree limb was hanging low, and I was on top of the hay, and it hit me in the back of the head and knocked me off the truck. When my mom took me to the doctor, when we went in the doctor, they had a TV, a big, pretty TV in there, and I went in, I turned the TV on, and the TV had a sign on it said "Whites Only." So that gave a picture to me all my life that the police was there to stop me from having the finer things of life.
All right. I hope that was fun, ladies and gentlemen. A little trip down memory lane. Now that we are 45 minutes into the show, John, what's the comment contest for the day?
We're looking for the most interesting arrest story in 3 sentences or less, or what we can fit on the screen here.
All right, there you go. Most interesting arrest story in 3 sentences or less. Get that in the comments. John will get it on screen. I got to respond to a couple comments here. I know before we actually get into the news of the day, one of the things that we've been working on in developing the show, and by the way, what you saw there was the version of Adam versus the Man in the basement in Virginia. And that was when we had 2 co-hosts and a producer live in studio for the show. And now that we have this studio space developed, it's kind of, before I've been limited to, I've got a desk and a curtain behind me, and that's it. And now that we've got this, I can use the whiteboard, but we can mount cameras and lights and set up shots and have co-host stations and producer stations if we want that in studio. Although we don't have to with StreamYard, it's really awesome to have this, but to have that flexibility, we could put up a monitor in here if we wanted to do guests that way as well. But we might have to run a generator during the show in order to do that. But now with the sound phone, we could have the generator so far off you wouldn't hear it. So we can do all of that stuff now during the show, and develop that out. So if you have requests, I don't think we really need to do a monitor in studio. I actually really like what we're doing now, where John is the guest, and with the guests calling in digitally handled on the screen. I think this is awesome what CJ's put together. But you see, we used to do the interviews on the monitor. Anyway, someone said in the comments, back when Adam's beard looked like it could cut diamonds. Well,
yeah, it was there.
Sure. Now I have a beard that you could beat government to death with. The other comment was back when Adam versus the Man was shot inside of a freezer.
Yeah, I thought that one was funny.
I thought the silver, just as insulation, it wasn't the best for sound reflected, but we had so much in there, and we had foam overhead. I thought the silver looked really cool. It looked like a spaceship.
I thought it looked like a portable grow room.
Bag. Yeah, or a grow room. Right, also very evocative of a grow room. All right, so John will be on the comments. I guess I gotta drink some more coffee.
All right. Oh, and Adam's excluded. We all know his story, and it definitely is the most interesting arrest. But
oh wait, which one? Which of my arrests is most interesting?
I think the most public one where they threw you on the ground.
The Jefferson Dance Party. Okay, of the ones that you know of, because I probably have a lot of interesting arrests that the public isn't even aware of. All right, with that being said, get your stories in the comments. John will be watching. Let's jump into the news of government becoming less shitty over time. All right, we already got a long comment here. Anthony Ralston, I was arrested in Van Horn, Texas for playing hacky sack, a dozen cars, guns drawn, in 6 hours downtown before they told me and my friend we aren't the bank robbers they thought we were. 17 years old. Oh! So they used playing hack. It was an arrested for hacky sack. That was the excuse. All right. Interesting. All right. We go to thehill.com. Biden to withdraw all U.S. troops from Afghanistan by September 11. Really good news. President Biden, wait, is it? We'll see. I mean, that they're there. Still, most Americans would see this headline and be like, wait, but
They're still there.
we have troops in Afghanistan. President Biden will withdraw all U.S. troops from Afghanistan by September 11, the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks that led to the longest war in American history. 2 congressional aides briefed on the plan confirmed the news to the Hill. A senior administration official later told reporters the United States will begin an orderly drawdown of the remaining forces before May 1 and plan to have all U.S. troops out of the country before the 20th anniversary of 9/11. The official added, we judge the threat against the homeland now emanating from. There's still, I mean, just listen to this language. We judge the threat against the homeland now emanating from Afghanistan to be at a level that we can address it without a persistent military footprint in the country and without remaining at war with the Taliban. So we say, like, yeah, we're still, up to this point, the government has considered us at war with the Taliban. And that's like the underpinning of this, like, you still have to be anti-war, as insignificant as it is historically. War is still, like, just perpetual war. I mean, not to mention Yemen, which I think we've actually undercovered on this show even. Producers Club, get on that. But Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan, because now we're at war with ISIS, right? So, but no, the Taliban, that's who we were at war with in Afghanistan. And I love, it's not gone, but it's at a low enough level that we can bring it back whenever we feel like generating another excuse. Like, that's part of what they're holding on to. The plan, which Biden is expected to formally announce Wednesday, pushes back a May withdrawal deadline that was set to deal with the Taliban, signed by the Trump administration last year. Wait, what? Pushes back a May withdrawal deadline. Oh, so this is like, wait a second. What is this? Oh my gosh. When did this happen last? Oh yeah, when Obama took over from Bush. We're going to run on the platform of ending the wars and then keep troops in Iraq and Afghanistan longer than Bush had planned when he left office. Yeah. Meet the new boss. Same as the old boss, right? I mean, is it worse at this? It's not worse overall. Like, I don't want to say that the destructiveness of this policy is what it was like when I was there back in the day, back when Iraq was a fresh war back in 2004, fresh occupation, I should say. And now, I mean, it's just old and stale, and it makes you wonder, what are they holding on to? And it does follow a template of imperialism where, war is the excuse to take control of natural resources. And now it's this, persistent emanating threat that's the excuse to hold on to them. And maybe even this, hey, we're going to withdraw all U.S. troops. I have mixed feelings about this, let's say. Good news that this is being announced, that this is what they have to pander to keep the racket going, right? But I know that when they say all U.S. troops will be out of Afghanistan by September 11, 2021. Oh, yeah, what's the deadline for covert CIA agents? The ones that you haven't told us about. What's the deadline for contractors? What's the deadline for private sponsored, American government funded private security and who knows what? What's the deadline for not we're going to be sending money there forever in order to manipulate things to maintain control of the poppy fields and the gas pipelines? Oh, okay. So, I'll take the good news with the bad. At least it's a de-escalation. As much as I want to point out, and we have to remember how shitty government still is, how shitty the American empire is about Afghanistan. Still getting a little less shitty over time, right? Slowly, less and less shitty over time. Cynthia Godwin Delisle, Canadians were trained peacekeepers when 9/11 happened. However, they were sent to Afghanistan to fight a war. Makes no sense to me. I don't like those kinds of it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, there's it's sort of helplessness, but it also is giving government a benefit of the doubt that it does not deserve at all. To say, oh, well, government made a mistake. Government did something illogical. No, government is making it look that way. It's bullshit. It's part of the lie of government to get away with their real purpose, in their various criminal enterprises. Now, that's not to say that maybe even the majority of people who work for government doing legitimate things aren't there. I mean, the people who pave the roads, most cops, even as shitty as being a cop is, no matter what, are probably overall well-intentioned. Certainly most government, people don't go to work at the DMV to make people's lives shitty. Like, they're not, those aren't the people. And so the majority of government employees, of road construction workers and cops and soldiers and bureaucrats aren't the sort of evil engineers of the system I'm referring to. But when we talk about the personification of government, that is often conscious down to the level of Congress members, at least. But even there, they're bit players in this game. The bigger string pullers, I mean, we might never know their names, but no, it's the billionaires, the now 100 billionaire club that Sergey Brin and what's the other guy's name, the co-founder of Google, was it Sergey Brin and I should know these two names. The other guy. Most police are brainwashed into thinking they're the good guys. Yeah, see, exactly. It's not. I mean, there are a lot of cops who genuinely do bad things, who are genuinely, obviously, deliberately, consciously corrupt, who don't have qualms about using violence to express their racism or their prejudices of other kinds, or whatever it is to stroke their egos. But even that, the majority go in, overall thinking that they're doing the right thing, that they're the good guys. Okay, did someone come up with the other Google? I'm gonna have to look up the other Google guy's name so that I know this. I'll bet if you know what? I'll bet if I go to Google and type in Sergey Brin and Larry Page, that's it. Sergey Brin, Larry Page. That's such an obvious name. Yeah, co-founders of Google. Now Alphabet, right, as the umbrella company. All right, so next in our sort of American politics, international stuff block, DailyWire.com, not our problem. Iowa governor rejects White House plea to house child migrants as admin flies kids cross country. The White House is now flying unaccompanied minors across the country to emergency housing facilities as it struggles to keep up with the thousands of child migrants flooding across the United States southern border. And Iowa's Republican governor is now the first to refuse the Biden administration's pleas to provide temporary housing. And I mean, the libertarian position on this is simple. Private property borders are legitimate, government borders are not. And unless you are the owner of a property, you don't have any legitimate reason to violate anybody's freedom of movement anywhere else. So the whole partisanship of this, where Republican, like the policy is determined by bigger forces than the will of the American people, as petty as that is in politics, or even the partisan divide. But what's interesting is how Republicans have come to play on the sort of security fears of the United States voting public. We have to protect you from, there's rapists and murderers and thieves coming across and marijuana's coming across this. Rapists and thieves and murders and marijuana's, oh my, coming across the southern border. And the Democrats have sort of played on the opposite, inclusive, loving, welcoming side of things, and side of the electorate. And it fits. I don't want to say it's unusual. It's just interesting. And it fits with the sort of psychological paradigm divergence of these two major flavors of statism, liberalism and conservatism in America, separate but also embodied in politics by Democrats and Republicans at another level of whatever of analysis or of power here. And sometimes I watch The Daily Show because I hate myself. And Trevor Noah did an interesting. Well, it wasn't really him, probably his editors put together a Fox versus Fox on immigration under Trump versus Biden, and it really is hilarious, showing how just ridiculously hypocritical they are, where under Trump they're saying, oh, look, the kids are being housed compassionately, and they've got clean floors I could eat off of. And then now Biden administration continuing the policies under Trump. I mean, overall, no major change. Some of the numbers have gone up, and people are going, "Oh my God, Biden is keeping more kids in cages than Trump." And like, I don't really care. I mean, I don't really care about like the metrics of who's here and who's. It's all tragedy, and none of them are really addressing the limitations and the consequences of the policy of limiting freedom of movement. And I'll say this every time it's relevant, because there are now multiple studies that show that global productivity would double if you just eliminated government borders as restrictions on the free flow of labor capital, not on people moving, but people traveling for work. Global productivity would double. That's fucking nuts. The average human, to maintain their standard of living today, would have to work half as much, or just we'd all have twice as much stuff. We get to the next level of it's incredible to think how much this is holding us back. But yes, now Democrats are upset legitimately because they expected a significant change in the compassion here. And I look at this and go, the White House is flying. Anyway, let's read the story for a second here, right? The White House is now flying unaccompanied minors across the country to emergency housing facilities as it struggles to keep up with the thousands of child migrants flooding across the United States southern border. And Iowa's Republican governor is now the first to refuse the Biden administration's pleas to provide temporary housing. Late last week, Republican Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds said she has rejected a federal request to accept migrant children into the state, saying the need to find homes for them is the president's problem, per the Associated Press. And it's like, I mean, yeah, it is, okay, sure, but if you say it's the president's problem, do you not recognize the authority of the president over your state? Like, if it's the president's problem, it has to reside somewhere within these United States, to which you have ceded authority to some degree as part of this union that should never have existed in the first place as we know it today. So that a Republican is now, is grandstanding. Why are we hearing about this from Republican Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds? I think it's because the Republicans, I think there's a subtle drive in the Republican Party to be the first party of actually getting a woman president elected. That's how they're going to come back against Biden-Harris, right? Kristi Noem, governor of South Dakota, who CJ, our producer today and CEO, has pointed out as a resident and political activist, libertarian candidate in South Dakota, that Kristi Noem is grooming herself or being set up for, or in some ways, being prepared to be a candidate for the Republican nomination in 2024, and that a lot of her COVID messaging, grandstanding, standing out on was part of that effort. And of course, this is sort of like, duh. But what I'm seeing here is that there's a unique opportunity, and perhaps, and I don't know anything else about her, but Republican Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, in doing this now, seems like she's trying to set herself up for a higher profile national position. And now remember, this isn't just like, oh, we need people running for president, because a lot of people, like, look at Pete Buttigieg, who's now Department of Transportation called out for today for saying that racism is built into our public highway system. And it's like, well, yeah, it actually is. But do we care? Does the Department of Transportation Secretary, or whatever his title is, does he need to be talking about that? Republicans are sort of rightfully, well, bullshit culture war, who really cares? But by running for president, all you have to do is get on the national stage. Remember, for the Republican and Democrat nominations, in addition to the several dozen that you might hear about in the national media, there are thousands that file paperwork and a few hundred other sort of semi-viable candidates that at least could get on that national stage. And if they get on that national stage and are well received, well, sets them up for a cabinet position, sets them up to run again in 4 years, sets them up to run for Congress or the U.S. Senate. It's all part of the political voter prominence, name ID, message solidification, reputation kind of game. So CJ weighs in here by telegram. If Trump doesn't run, she will run for president. If he does, she will try to get the VP spot. So yeah, interesting balancing act though now for Kristi Noem, South Dakota governor, and Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds. Kind of balancing act that if Trump runs for the nomination in 24, how much do they set themselves up opposed to him? Does being a woman in the post-Trump Republican Party give you an edge? I think it gives you several. Craig weighs in, ours abortion is wrong. It hurts the helpless. We need to house children. ... Not my problem. Lively report. Still statist, Adam? Yeah, sure. Dailymail.co.uk. Russia announces snap live fire drills in the Black Sea today as first U.S. warship is expected to arrive, and pro-Kremlin mouthpiece warns war is inevitable amid soaring tensions on Ukraine border. The Russian Navy will hold snap live fire drills in the Black Sea today amid escalating tensions around Ukraine. Missile ships, frigate, and minesweeper will take part in drill with naval airplanes and helicopters, Russia said. Comes as first of 2 U.S. destroyers thought to be on the way to the Black Sea is expected to arrive today. Meanwhile, Kremlin said it is studying Joe Biden's proposal for summit with Putin, but has not yet accepted. Pro-Kremlin mouthpiece Margarita Simonian warned that war between two superpowers is inevitable. Now, pro-Kremlin mouthpiece Margarita Simonian is saying that the war is inevitable does not make it so, but it does mean that someone is pushing this, that someone wants this, that there's some bigger effort here. And there is always, I don't want to sort of be the kind of conspiracy theorist that says, it's all just part of some master plan. No, there is real jockeying for power. There is so what's going on here? I think is unlikely to result in an actual hot war, any kind of shooting war around Ukraine, any more than with Taiwan and China and the United States. Different story, different circumstances there than with the history of Ukraine and NATO and Russia, as opposed to Taiwan and independence from China and the United States government in opposing China, if only for that reason, wanting to oppose Taiwanese independence, and in a sense wanting to maintain overall power dominance, wanting to oppose Russian expansionism. This sort of jockeying here is important in seeing how things play out, but I'm confident in, especially after having covered what happened in Ukraine a few years ago with the vote there, that there is going to be still an overall trend towards localization, decentralization, the balkanization, as you might call it, even of governments throughout the world, or of peoples throughout the world, living as victims of large central governments wanting to separate. And this sort of instability here, I am truly disheartened by how things played out with Hong Kong, and the momentum towards independence for Hong Kong seems to have been significantly curtailed by recent events, and how Beijing was able to use COVID as the excuse in many ways to suppress what was a budding Hong Kong independence movement just before COVID hit. But the drive for Beijing to take over Taiwan, Tibet, the problem with the Uyghurs in the north, Mongolia, I don't think that as power shifts towards China, away from the United States, as it will become a more dominant economic center of power over the next few decades, it's still not, and it's interesting. China may be, if I'm correct in my general predictions, I would say China will be the last great superpower of the world. And that's a good thing. That we are seeing a significant shift in power, that with approximately 3 times the population of the United States and an economy roughly on par with the United States still for GDP, things like that, those sort of bigger metrics right now, it will soon surpass the United States. And if it hasn't already, by a number of metrics, and it's a lot of metrics it already has. So with China becoming the new center of power, you're going to see, as we've had a sort of, before the United States empire, we had the British Empire. We had a sort of European flavored world. Before that, there were the empires, so the great empires of Persia and of the Khans, right? And I'm sure I'm missing some other major ones that a historian would point out. No, Adam, in history there have been these other great empires as well, sure, but the last great global flavor may be Chinese before decentralization, localization really takes over. And in terms of limiting the violence and the power of the Chinese government that way, it's going to be interesting because in the United States, as an anti-war activist, we have been sort of fighting our own government, trying to limit imperialism, limit the viciousness of the United States federal government. And it may soon be that the greater threat to peace is the Chinese government. But I'm sure as you look at the viciousness of every empire, I mean, they used to cut out tongues and put heads on pikes. Like that was not a big deal at one point in human history. Look how far we've come. Governments get less shitty over time, and so do major empires. So as interesting as things may be, in a China-centric world, it will be less shitty than this current version of the Amerocentric or American flavored world. So we have that to look forward to. And in the meantime, where Russia is pushing up against the United States, possibly in Ukraine and elsewhere, you will see with the recession or the decline of the American empire, various forces pushing in. And Russia might be the biggest and the most visible, but there will be others. And remember, super important to remember on scale, the Russian economy is only about 1/30th the size of the United States. And now I'm like, shit, what's the population of Russia? Oh, I had this fact in my head a while ago because we looked it up, didn't we? Population of Russia is Google. I need a better like Jeopardy chime for when I do this on the show. Because right now it's just me rambling to fill airspace while I pull up secure connection failed. Who has population of Russia? Nobody had Larry Page before I found that. Am I on your hotspot?
Yeah, and mine's still there. Wait, here it comes.
Okay. Here it comes.
Offline.
There it is. 144.4 million as of 2019. Thank you, CJ, getting that on screen. So now I got it. So with the United States, roughly 330 million, Russia's population less than half, economy 1/30th. Very important for perspective. And China, meanwhile, population roughly 3 times the United States, economy roughly the same size. So to our next story, Associated Press, Iran calls Natanz atomic site blackout nuclear terrorism. Covered this. I want to come back to it. Dubai. Iran on Sunday described a blackout at its underground Natanz atomic facility as an act of nuclear terrorism, raising regional tensions as world powers and Tehran continue to negotiate over its tattered nuclear deal. While there was no immediate claim or responsibility, suspicion fell immediately on Israel, where its media nearly uniformly reported devastating cyber attack orchestrated by the country caused the blackout. Yeah, right. So The Guardian, for our next headline follow-up, Israel appears to confirm it carried out cyber attack on Iran nuclear facility. Shutdown happened hours after Natanz reactors' new centrifuges were started. Israel appeared to confirm claims that it was behind a cyber attack on Iran's main nuclear facility on Sunday, which Tehran's nuclear energy chief described as an act of terrorism that warranted a response against its perpetrators. The apparent attack took place hours after officials of the Natanz reactor restarted spinning advanced centrifuges that could speed up the production of enriched uranium. Man, now I'm really getting cotton mouth. I haven't even smoked for an hour. Has it been an hour? Did I smoke? Yeah, it's been an hour. In what had been billed as a pivotal moment in the country's nuclear program, as Iranian authorities scrambled to deal with a large-scale blackout in Natanz, which the country's Atomic Energy Agency acknowledged to damage the electricity grid at the site. The Israel Defense Chief, Aviv Kochavi, said the country's operations in the Middle East are not hidden from the eyes of the enemy. Israel imposed no censorship restrictions on coverage, as it had often done after similar previous incidents, and the apparent attack was widely covered by Israeli media. Public radio took the unusual step of claiming that the Mossad intelligence agency had played a central role. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said later Sunday that the struggle against Iran and its proxies and the Iranian armament effort is a huge mission. The situation that exists today, the situation that will exist tomorrow. So much I want to say about this, but I've caught enough. I'll just move on to the next story. No, with what we're the context of the jockeying of the superpowers, Israel needs to be seen as a satellite power of the U.S. government when most of its military, is made possible by American military aid, foreign aid. Just it's billions of dollars every year go to Israel in different ways, different times, different ways that are challenging, difficult to account for. And Iran is thought of similarly as an ally of Russia, maybe not as in bed with, who knows. I haven't looked into that. It'd be interesting to see how does the connection in this particular spat between Iran and Israel. How is the relationship between Israel and the United States compared to the relationship between Iran and Russia? And what does that have to do with the other Russian expansionism, while United States federal government power is waning around the world? So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And I think, and I hope that more and more these kinds of stories are becoming less and less relevant. There's a sort of, it's just saber rattling, right? It's just power jockeying if they don't think they can really escalate. And I don't think they can. I think what we're seeing is actually a very good sign that with these huge, violent criminal governments still existing, there's a great limit to what they can get away with. Now, who knows what false flag they may be able to create next, but are they going to be able to spin that into an excuse to have a large-scale force-on-force ground war that leads to mass casualties or significant collateral damage, civilian death, et cetera, et cetera? I don't think so. I really don't think that's a thing anymore. Again, government's becoming less shitty over time. Maybe if only because they can't get away with being as shitty in the age of the internet accountability as they were able to in prior ages. The Sun, for our next headline: Star Wars, China militarizing space by building destructive missiles and lasers to blind U.S. spacecraft sensors, Intel report says. Yeah, and who knows what fear-mongering this is. I'm sure there's way more than all these governments are doing that are scaring us, developing technologies behind the scenes. By the way, on Friday this week, we're going to have a lot of UFO stories. And I think they're just governments fucking with each other. Like, if China and Russia can just create things that at first the U.S. can't identify but can't suppress the filming and photography of, they get to scare the population of this other country, and they get to make the population of the other country think that their government is fucking with them, right? Because if the U.S. Navy has to put out photos or video of triangular-shaped UFOs swarming destroyers because enough of the personnel on those ships have seen them that they can't suppress it, and they have to say, yeah, we see this and we don't know what it is.
Plus they get to have fun, and otherwise completely boring job.
Oh, come on. Being in the Navy isn't that boring. Do gay people join the Navy, or does being in the Navy make you gay, or is that just something Marines like to say? Yeah.
People. I think they're authority on this.
We'll still keep talking. Well, we'll always talk inter-service, inter-branch whatever shit talking will be a thing till the day we die as veterans. So yeah, you're gonna have to wait for us to die to make this genre of dumb jokes go away. But I will say in the Marine Corps, we do have more than our share of gay and very short service members for the same reason, is that that's where you go to prove yourself. If you're a guy, there are a lot of people who go, and it's sad. It's a sad fact of being gay in America that, instead of just going, oh, that's your sexuality, your masculinity itself is questioned, right? And a lot of gay dudes are sort of pressured socially or bullied into joining the Marine Corps, specifically because that's the place you go to prove yourself, right? Prove that you're a man. You never make fun of me for being gay if I know how to kill people, right? Yeah. No. People who hate on being gay don't care that you were in the Marines. But if you were in the Marines, it's fun pointing out to a lot of people who are like older generation. There's still people who are like, I mean, it's almost not a thing anymore, like being anti-cannabis, being anti-gay, but it still is. It's still significant. And for the gay community, LGBT, all GSM, gender sexual minorities, there's still like significant challenges from discrimination that we're getting. Again, this whole enlightenment thing coming with older people smoking weed, right? There's going to be a sexual enlightenment and revolution that goes along with that as well. Whether that results in more or less sex, who knows? Maybe we'll upload our consciousnesses into computers and robots, and then we won't need to have sex, or I don't know. Who knows? But at least we'll get over the dumb shit and the hangups, right? And it's fun pointing out to old people, like, hey, have you ever been on a sports team or in the military? Because then I can almost guarantee you've showered with a gay dude. Like, yeah. Especially in the Marines. And the Marine Corps, even when I was in 2000, when I joined, being gay was like, you still don't ask, don't tell. It was still very covert, but it wasn't like that big a deal. Like I remember my reserve, we had a guy who was gay. He was a wrestler, and dudes would wrestle him. And like, I wasn't a wrestler. I didn't want to get my ass kicked. Certainly not by the gay Marine, no, but he would have destroyed me in a wrestling match. And I was like, nah, no thanks. But like, it was just, yeah, he's gay. Does his job. He'll fucking kill for you. He'll fight. He'll put his life. He'll die for you. He's a Marine. Still bleeds green. And enough experiences like that over the course of human history, we just get real about shit. Being gay is one of them. How did I get to that from China building counter space weapons? They would act in direct opposition to U.S.-owned aircraft by possibly blinding their sensors. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence has released a report detailing efforts made by the Chinese military that would match, if not exceed, current U.S. technology in upcoming years. So yeah, be afraid of China. Oh, it's because we were talking about UFOs and being gay, and yeah, so UFOs, Friday, good stories. See, now we go to our econ block, starting with some fun crypto stories. Coinbase, this is from CNBC. Coinbase is unlike any market debut Wall Street has ever seen. Coinbase is set to hit the public market on Wednesday, a week after preliminarily reporting a ninefold increase in first quarter revenue to an estimated $1.8 billion. Recent private market trades value the company at about $100 billion on a fully diluted basis. Its business so far has been closely tied to the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum. But while Bitcoin has been on a tear this year, it lost 75% of its value in 2018. There's no reason that couldn't happen again. Well, yeah, hypothetically, it's also highly unlikely at this point that it would lose 75% of its value. What's more likely is that it would lose 99% of its value if Bitcoin itself becomes obsolete. But if it were to do that, it would mean that Ethereum or Hex or Bitcoin Cash or who knows what other next generation of crypto is taken over. Clearly, the demand for crypto is there, and that is not going away. Crypto evangelists say the long-term value of the company goes way beyond those two currencies and will come from a shift in the structure of finance and online marketplaces. Coinbase is poised to command an astronomical valuation when the digital currency exchange goes public on Wednesday. But ask 10 market experts how the company should be valued, and you'll likely get 10 different answers. But it doesn't matter. The market will decide, and the market is speaking. Follow up on another crypto story here. Commercial Observer. New York City landlord Kent Swig starts new cryptocurrency with $6 billion in gold. Who knew a conversation between Kent Swig and his teenage son would lead to the development of a new cryptocurrency? Swig, a New York City landlord, secured a minimum of $6 billion in gold reserves to back DIGAU, or D-I-G-A-U. His new crypto, I guess, I don't know how you say that. DIGAU? His new cryptocurrency, Bloomberg reported, the value of a DIGAU digital token, I gotta learn how to say it. This is what they're calling it. It's D-I-G in caps, A-U. DIGAU, DIGAU, digital token will be attached to the market price of gold, which would in theory make it more stable than other oft fluctuating digital currencies like Bitcoin. Swig and partner Stephen Braverman's company Dignity Gold plan to guarantee the new cryptocurrency with liens secured against mining claims in Nevada and Arizona. So it's not like he's got $6 million and goes. There's a lot of complicated financial stuff putting this together. I don't want to go further into the story because we're way behind on our news today. But you can go to t.me/Adam versus the man for our show notes and see all of them right there. Public Telegram channel. Get more in depth on any of the stories we cover today and every day. Next crypto story from the smoking gun. An anonymity cost tops $4 billion for hacker. A bit of a weird headline to explain, but the story is not that complicated. Thanks to the ballooning value of Bitcoin, the U.S. government could liquidate more than $4 billion in cryptocurrency confiscated from a hacker whose identity, despite an array of felonious conduct, is mysteriously being shielded by federal prosecutors. In November, the Department of Justice announced the forfeiture of 69,370 Bitcoin from a wallet that had been dormant for more than 5 years. The Bitcoin prosecutors say it had been stolen from Silk Road, the notorious darknet drug marketplace that was shut down by federal investigators in October 2013. Silk Road's founder, Ross Ulbricht, was subsequently convicted of an assortment of crimes and sentenced to life in prison. Since last year's seizure, the value of Bitcoin has quadrupled, with the cryptocurrency now trading for about $60,000. The stolen Silk Road coins could become the most lucrative forfeiture by an individual in United States history. By comparison, Purdue Pharma, as part of a plea deal with criminal fraud and conspiracy charges related to its marketing of the opioid OxyContin, agreed last year to a $2 billion criminal forfeiture, along with $3.54 billion fine and $2.8 billion civil settlement. Oh man, I could go on about the bullshit of that for hours. But this story now, they have the Bitcoin address wallet published as 1HQ3 for short, was long the subject of online speculation due to the account's inactivity in its perennial spot in the top 10 of richest Bitcoin addresses. I think there's so much more to the story that you're not going to get from anything public right now anyway. When we saw how the federal agents involved in the crypto case, in the case against Ross Ulbricht with Silk Road, were actually embezzling money, I shouldn't say embezzling, we're stealing money the entire time, and who knows what they were able to squirrel away or hide from other federal investigators who caught them and came in later. And maybe they caught them and stole from them. I mean, there's so many. And will the federal agents who did this do time? Probably not, because not only color of law, qualified immunity, blah, 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 but this gives them, it encourages them to steal with immunity and say, oh, I was doing it as part of my job. Oh, I made a mistake. Ross Ulbricht instead ends up with 2 life sentences. ABC News, and I guess I should, is it freeross.org for everybody there if you want to help Ross and his mother Lynn in helping get him released for a hearing or a pardon that we didn't get from Trump, obviously. From abcnews.go.com, Microsoft buying speech recognition firm Nuance in $16 billion deal. Microsoft, on an accelerated growth push, is buying a speech recognition company, Nuance, in a cash deal worth $16 billion. New York Microsoft, on an accelerated growth push, is buying speech recognition company Nuance. The acquisition will get Microsoft deeper into hospitals and the healthcare industry through Nuance's widely used medical dictation and transcription tools. They will pay $56 cash per share, a 23% premium to Nuance's Friday closing price. So they're actually paying more than that. Why is it worth so much? Nuance has been a pioneer in voice-based artificial intelligence technology and was instrumental in helping to power Apple's digital assistant Siri. It has since shifted its focus to healthcare, including a product that listens in on exam room conversations between physicians and patients and automatically writes up the doctor's recommendations. That is huge. Wow. Like, so that, and this is, I mean, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. I mean, in the econ block, but also in the implementation of AI technology. Next time you go to the doctor, you might have AI listening in. And what this is, I think, getting to eventually, not only is a massive improvement in healthcare and records, there's so much human suffering caused by just medical accidents, errors, mistakes in transcription that might be alleviated by this, but also in making healthcare cheaper and affordable by rendering doctors essentially obsolete. So up next, CNBC, when is the housing market going to crash? Is a red hot search on Google. Here's why. Google reported last week that the search, when is the housing market going to crash, had spiked 2,450% in the past month. At the start of this month, 42% of homes were selling for more than their list price, according to real estate brokerage Redfin. This was 16 percentage points higher than the same period a year earlier. I have to admit, I'm worried when I hear that. It does make me concerned, said Frank Nothaft, CoreLogic's chief economist. So interesting to see that what was originally, a dip in housing prices and, a major consolidation of value has now turned into a surge. And who knows if it's going to be coming to a pop soon, but it certainly looks that way. MarketWatch.com, Nike launches refurbished sneaker program. Now, this is an interesting story economically, and I almost didn't cover it, but it's an important story in terms of efficiency and a shift in consumer demand, and that people are willing to buy. I mean, Nike wouldn't do this without serious, significant market research first. I mean, my first thought is like, for myself, like, and I can buy new shoes and wear them out myself and break them in myself. I'll do that. I don't need to pay for used shoes. I mean, I don't have a problem. I go to a thrift store and I see something like cool pair of shoes. I might, wear that to a party, or if I see like a really special pair of cowboy boots and go, all right, yeah, I'll buy a used pair of cowboy boots if it's something special. And I get it, for people who are sneakerheads, man, I think that the amount that we pay, though, of all the overpriced items that we need to fucking get over, shoes, fucking especially sneakers, really? You pay for an athlete's name on them, or the swoosh, or the Reebok, whatever the fuck branding, like, really? Do you know how much you're paying for that has nothing to do with the performance or the value of your shoe? And a lot of them are bad for you. Professional athletes, you look at what at least for what people who run, they wear minimalist shoes, not like these, big heel joggers that people wear that actually are worse on their knees. I used to be a big advocate of this, talking about running barefoot back when I used to run regularly. Now I just do manual labor. So Nike doing this, you see there's a sign in the picture with the story, move to zero, like new, gently worn, cosmetically flawed, Nike refurbished. So there's three different tiers they're doing, and people will still pay for the brand, and it's dumb. Like, it's really dumb that people will pay for brand names and sneakers and lots of other things. I used to be kind of a brand whore for Adidas, briefly, but it was cool kids who were, down with Adidas, right? It was the dorks who were the mainstream lamos who wore Nikes and Reeboks. Now, like, even then, I barely cared. I just liked the three stripes on the shoulders look. And I wish that the intellectual property thing wasn't a big deal and anybody could make stuff with threes. But no, Adidas owns, we are the brand with three stripes. Now I'm like kind of resentful for having supported that at all. You can get shit from China with three stripes. Don't get me wrong. I know it's out there. You can find it. But this is something I want to celebrate, that consumers who are dumb enough to want to pay for Nikes, or at least smart enough to say, maybe I can get used shoes, right? Nike has launched a program that will give a second life to return shoes in an effort to address the consumer concern over climate change and environmental degradation. Nike Refurbished will use tools to make shoes that are like new, those that have only had a couple of wears or gently worn, merchandise as close to new condition as possible. Shoes should be returned within the 60-day window. Once they're placed back on store shelves, items will be marked with information about the renewed shoes, and they will be priced based on style and condition. I'm like, what were they doing it before? I know this is, sort of a marginal thing, but before this, returned items that don't make it back on the shelf will become part of the Nike Grind program, which destroys merchandise that can be used to make things like rubber flooring, outdoor courts, and other shoes. I'm thinking maybe this is what they were doing with everything before. But the point is that I'm seeing is a good part of the story. Consumers are getting smarter, and it's leading to greater efficiency. And it's really dumb in this place where there's so much inefficiency, where we're paying. What are we paying for? $1 million deals for sponsorship for athletes? Fuck that, right? Like, how much of what you when you buy Nike shoes are going to advertising, essentially? Like, that's really dumb. That's really inefficient. But there's at least this trend now, a desire for greater efficiency. And you see it really does come with conscious consumerism. It does change with an evolution in market demand. Last in our economics block, CNBC, new $3,000 child tax credit to start payments in July, IRS says. There's good news for American families. The IRS plans to begin sending monthly payments from the new $3,000 child tax credit in July. Commissioner Charles Reddick said Tuesday during a hearing with the Senate Finance Committee. The new and significantly expanded child tax credit was included in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan signed into law by President Joe Biden in March. Under the law, families will receive a $3,000 annual benefit per child ages 6 to 17 and $3,600 per child under the age of 6 for the 2021 tax year. Now, for a lot of people who don't really pay enough in taxes for this to be relevant, it's not a big deal if it's just a deduction. But if they're actually, getting checks, as we're seeing in some of the benefits and the relief payments, you go, well, at what point is our government subsidizing child raising? At what point is government just encouraging people to have kids? Because people do make decisions based on this. You have to take it into account. Even people who don't want to go, well, if we had kids, if you're thinking, well, I want to have kids, but I want to be financially responsible. I don't want to be dependent on government. Well, what is the government paying us to have kids? How does having kids change our financial relationship with government and our tax burden? And for a lot of wage slaves, it's a huge deal, and they subsidize child rearing, and then they build in the dependency, and they keep you working for the man and dependent on government for being able to buy diapers and feed your kids and pay your rent, and then they manipulate you. And I mean, it's just, man, social engineering. But if they're doing it by carrots instead of sticks, we can still put that in the category of government becoming less shitty over time, right? Now, getting more shitty, we go to CNN.com for a bit of a police state update. Protests and police clash in third night of protests after death of Dante. Is it Dante or Duante? Because it looks like Dante, right? But I've heard people say it the other way. Dante Wright. I should know. I should watch CNN. I'm sure they pronounce it properly. Dante Wright, the name we should be remembering for this recent shooting. Police in the Minneapolis suburb of Brooklyn Center declared protests to be an unlawful assembly Tuesday evening as demonstrations over the death of 20-year-old Dante Wright continued for a third consecutive night. Protests were peacefully Tuesday afternoon, but as the sun set, chaos erupted at the Brooklyn Center police station. Officers used pepper spray and fired flash bombs at protesters. Water bottles and other projectiles were thrown at officers and riot gear. I mean, I don't want to minimize a death at all, but the fact that we can have such an outsized, I mean, it's not outsized. Again, that sounds demeaning, right? but that we can have such a positive response demanding change, demanding accountability, that we have the Chauvin trial for the death of George Floyd happening right now, that we have the incident with the Army lieutenant getting arrested for pulling over at a gas station, right? That we have the body cam footage, that we have cell phones. We are seeing, I think, a general reduction in the viciousness of the police state over a long enough time that we can call it a significant trend that follows this technology making accountability possible. And more clearly, even seeing this next headline is very encouraging. From the Star Tribune, retailers urged to rethink police calls for low-level crimes after George Floyd's death. That's right. George Floyd died in police custody after a corner store clerk reported he had used a fake $20 bill, a nonviolent offense so low-level that police don't usually take people to jail for it. Now, as the trial over his death continues to unfold, criminal justice reform experts and diversity specialists are hoping the case will prompt retailers from small businesses to major chains to reassess how they treat Black and other minority customers and how they can handle loss prevention cases more equitably, more intelligently, more efficiently, more value creating rather than destroying, with less inefficiency of the government involved, as with the risk of violence done by police when being called to respond to petty crimes. Anytime they think they get to take someone into custody, this is a potential consequence. And I hadn't thought of this, but yeah, you think about the George Floyd story. If you're a shop owner and you deal with customers, you have to be afraid that among your good, honest customers are dishonest people who want to steal from you, who want to use counterfeit bills. How do you deal with that? Do you call the police and you go, oh fuck, you are the store owner who called the police on George Floyd? You're part of the chain of events that led to this whole thing, that led to George Floyd's death. And ultimately, of course, I think is a more positive chain of events, because George Floyd died so brutally and visibly as he did. He's going to lead to the saving of a lot of lives in the future, of people who might have otherwise died in similar circumstances. BuzzFeed News has a very important story, Surveillance Nation. BuzzFeed News investigations found that employees at law enforcement agencies across the U.S. ran thousands of Clearview AI facial recognition searches, often without the knowledge of the public or even their own departments. And that really that's the story. That's all you know. If you want to get into this, the link's going to be in the notes. It's a long story. It's a big one. And it is worth knowing about if you care about facial ID and the cutting edge of this. But basically, yeah, free samples for cops to do shitty things with facial ID technology. And again, I'm not afraid of the technology. This is not like an atom bomb that's purely destructive. Facial ID technology is a good thing in and of itself, that we have this capability to interact with machines that can tell who we are, verify our ID, or see us in public and know if we're in trouble, that they can send emergency medical drones to help. There's so many examples of this empowering us, and that it's like creeping in through cops and law enforcement. That is disturbing. Fox 5 New York, Hawaii to allow nurses to perform abortions. And this is simple. Governor David Iga on Monday signed legislation that would make Hawaii the latest state to allow some nurses to perform abortions. Hawaii law previously said only physicians could perform early in-clinic abortions, but because of a doctor shortage, several smaller islands lack abortion providers, which forces residents of those islands to fly to Honolulu if they need the procedure. And this is, high profile, making national news because people really care about abortion. People want to read about it. It's a hot button issue, and it is one that does deserve attention, maybe not as much as it gets, but and certainly not this kind of attention. I mean, the kind of attention it deserves is getting to the root causes. But when abortions can be justified and need to happen for medical reasons, why should we have government standing in the way? And you go, wait a second, how does medical licensing work? It's not whether you're capable of doing something safely and reliably. It's whether you've jumped through enough government hoops to be licensed as a doctor, and that allows you to do certain things. And that means that a lot of alternative practitioners are kept from legally doing certain things, and that has provided for a huge bottleneck in delivery of medical services, driven up the price, driven down quality, as with any similar such intervention. Similarly, another abortion story from nationalreview.com, FDA lifts restrictions on abortion pill amid coronavirus pandemic. The Biden admin on Monday announced it will rescind rules requiring people to obtain abortion drugs in person amid the coronavirus pandemic, reversing a Trump administration policy that the Supreme Court reinstituted in January. So at least some level of loosening up of government restrictions here due to the pandemic, because they had to. Hopefully this one becomes permanent, although I am reminded of Reagan's. There's nothing closer to eternal life than a temporary government program. The Guardian, airborne plastic pollution spiraling around the globe. Study finds rising levels of microplastic pollution raise questions about the impact on human health, experts say. Microplastic pollution is now spiraling around the globe, according to a study of airborne plastic particles. The researchers said human pollution has led to a global plastic cycle akin to natural processes such as the carbon cycle, with plastic moving through the atmosphere, oceans, and land. The result is the plastification of the planet, said one scientist. The analysis calls plastic pollution one of the most pressing environmental issues of the 21st century. So good news that we're becoming aware of this. Similar good news from Popular Mechanics, in the sense at least. Bill Gates will have to wait a while to block the sun. Yeah, thank you. Remember we covered this a couple of weeks ago when Bill Gates announced that he wanted to put chalk dust in the air to block sun to fight global warming. Yeah, nothing to do with his depopulation goals, of course. Scientists have postponed the billionaire-backed study of the controversial technology called solar geoengineering. All right, and finally, watch two more stories. Associated Press, Nielsen network splash on stats showing fewer viewers. Yeah, the story is pretty much what you would think. Nielsen Television Rating Company says less people are watching TV networks. Say, no, really? Yes, people have been stuck at home for a year due to COVID-19 restrictions, with movie theaters closed, concert venues closed, restaurants closed, sports attendance restricted, yet television viewing is down. That makes no sense to networks and cable and satellite providers who are complaining that the Nielsen company is inaccurately counting how many people are actually watching. Nielsen's reply in a nutshell: the truth hurts. It's an argument of financial implications, since networks later this spring begin selling advertising for the next year. Fewer viewers equals fewer ad dollars. Through the trade group Video Advertising Bureau, the networks are perplexed by Nielsen statistics that show the percentage of Americans who watch their televisions at least sometime during the week declined from 92% in 2019 to 87% so far this year. Besides being counterintuitive in the pandemic era, the VAB says that finding runs counter to other evidence, including viewing measurements from set-top cable boxes, the increased amount of streaming options that have become available, and a jump in sales for television sets. Well, people can be using TV sets to be watching stuff online, and I think I mean, if I had to guess, make a theory if this is all true. I think the best explanation here is that if you give people so much time that they have to entertain themselves at home, maybe at first they mindlessly sink into more TV and binge watching shows, and that has been reflected. But you make them sustain that for a year. I hope this isn't me being too optimistic, but I think over a year's time, we would become more conscientious of what we're watching. So it's like you say, hey, lockdown. You're going to watch, sit down, okay, you watch TV for a few hours a week. Now it's a few more hours per week. And the next month, a few more hours. And you go, fuck, my brain's getting sick of this. If I'm going to put this much time into video entertainment, at least I'm going to have to be more conscientious of what I'm watching. Pull shit up online, download shit, stream shit, watch documentaries, watch good movies. And that represents a huge positive shift in consciousness. Even if it's people having more screen time, they're also being more aware of how their time is being spent at home over the pandemic. Learning how to cook or get a new hobby or working out at home or whatever it is, spending more time with your kids, getting better habits, all of those things are going to lead to less mindless TV time. And people were really watching TV not just because they were stuck at home, but because there was a culture of mindlessness. And in the times of just wanting to zone out, that's what Americans turn to. But at some point, the consciousness increases. Quick story from Project Veritas, big score from them, projectveritas.com. CNN exposed breaking. CNN director admits network engaged in propaganda to remove Trump from presidency. Our focus was to get Trump out of office. I came to CNN because I wanted to be a part of that. And this is because they had someone undercover pretending to date this guy. This is Chester. Project Veritas released I'm sorry, I want to get the name. CNN technical director Charlie Chester got set up by Project Veritas. They released a new video today exposing CNN director Charlie Chester, who admitted that his network engaged in propaganda to benefit Biden's candidacy during the 2020 election to the detriment of then President Trump. Chester also said CNN has a predetermined agenda when reporting on COVID-19 and climate change. Yeah, so confirmation of what we already knew. Big score for Project Veritas, so congratulations to them for that and for getting the story out. Let's go now to John Evans, our co-host, for a comment contest winner today. What do we have for most interesting arrest story in 3 sentences or less? You still there, everybody? Bueller? CJ, what's going on backstage?
I'm here.
I've seen comments coming. I haven't gotten to respond to as many as I want. There he is. John.
It looks like Colette Allen is the winner. She's on Facebook, and she said earlier in the show, she said earlier in the show, my cousin got arrested. His name was John Smith. They didn't believe him. His family had to go and show them documents proving who he was.
Hi, I'm John Smith. It's like, I want to name all my kids John Doe. Not John Doe Cocos, just John Doe. Not John Alfred Hancock Hitchcock Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt Doe, just John Doe. Like, you want to government? No. I think if I ever have kids, I'm gonna make sure they don't even have government birth certificates. So it won't really matter what we call them in that sense.
I have 2 friends that don't have middle names, and cops never believe them. Not even they even like.
What's your middle name? You have to identify yourself. They see 2 names on the ID and they won't believe it.
And look at the ID funny.
All right, Jen. Any other good stories from the comments? Stuff I missed you want me to respond to?
Nothing too much out of the ordinary. Kind of lost my train of thought as I tried to get back to the comment story. But yeah, that was the best one for the contest. Bernie Madoff died. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
I saw that. I didn't want to cover it. I don't care. I mean, he was a legit criminal, sort of semi-super class, slimy guy, ran the Ponzi scheme. Yeah, we knew he was going to die in jail when he got sentenced. Right? Not really news that he died in jail. But news also now to share from the Producers Club. Officer who fatally shot Daunte Wright to be charged with second-degree manslaughter. So that's good. Again, new level of police accountability. If you have protesters and rioters coming out after a police shooting, you don't do anything about it. If you're a politician overseeing that system, you're going to be held accountable for that. That's the manifestation of those political forces. So good to see that. Any other thoughts on today's show before we get to producer notes, John?
I guess nothing really, except maybe it is not a sign of a healthy, well-adjusted individual to be healthy and well-adjusted in a profoundly sick society.
Amen. That should be on more posters and bumper stickers. I think it never hurts to remind people.
Still there?
indication of health. Yes.
All
Well,
right.
it's just my screen, and I think I don't know if it's CJ or someone else
keeps
doing
flipping.
stuff backstage, but something with StreamYard. I should explain to everybody who might have seen me like a few times during the show today, go black and sideways or something. It's a StreamYard glitch that I think is a problem with broadcasting from a phone that soon we should be able to overcome with a better internet connection and the new studio setup here, getting to put in webcams and who knows what else. But we'll see over the next month. There's some fun stuff developing here, and you'll see it, and you'll see it in a development of the format as well. Possibly even getting G.I. Mary. Maybe I can Shanghai G.I. Mary Jane into being our editorial in studio assistant here and actually read the story, so I don't have to talk for most of 2 hours. We'll get a female voice as possibly the dominant time on this. I'll still talk more than anybody else.
Yeah.
But the actual reading of the news is a major chunk of the airtime. To help with the editorial efforts, we'd love to have G.I. Mary Jane part of this show. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's room now in the studio with this amazing studio foam that she put up. This is cool. This
That looks
is
good.
really cool. It really it's
Good
what?
kind of padded room.
Yeah, it's the good kind of padded room. It still contains a lot of crazy. It keeps the crazy from getting out. But yeah, it's very cool. Came out the way we intended. So, John, thank you very much for co-hosting today, sir.
All right.
CJ, take us home with the producer notes or last end of show promos, please.
Oh man. Well, first off, I'm not Jim, so you're gonna have to
Oh,
give
I'm
me
sorry.
a moment. I'm a little.
I said CJ
No,
the second time.
no. You did. I'm just saying. I'm not Jim. I'm not as good as Jim at the promos. So normally I just have to click a few buttons here. So,
I think
but
the Lord of the Internet can handle some.
I can.
podcasts.
I think I'll be just fine. But real quick, I wanted to say before we hop off, I did talk to Steven yesterday.
Yes.
And so Steven, as of yesterday, he wanted me to record his call and have it put on the show. I'm not there with that yet. He's going to call in live one day from jail. We're going to pay for
Awesome.
that to happen. Yeah.
Awesome.
But I want everybody to know that he did say that he does have some legit complaints on why he's in there. He's not being physically abused, but he has some stories of cops doing some, pretty stupid stuff already. And, he wants everybody to know to think of Jennifer while, he's in there. She's having a hard time with this, obviously. He's supposed to be the co-host tomorrow. So I don't know who's filling in tomorrow.
Probably Joey in studio here, right?
Well, maybe you guys can make it happen. She could hop on the StreamYard or something.
We'll get that.
Yeah. So, and then other than that, I just, last I know is that we're going to be having somebody going to speak with him. And that's who I think we need to kind of let be the liaison between, him and at least the show, the public, because, we don't know what we don't know, and the attorney, whoever they get, is going to know more than we're going to know at the time.
Yeah, we have three main points of contact, really.
But
with Steven.
he's saying that in Georgia, they've suspended your rights to have a jury trial, and they're trying to get everybody to take plea deals.
Right.
And if you want a jury trial, he says you're probably going to be in there for about 10 years.
Wow.
So
yeah, that is one of the tactics they use. But if they can deny you bond, it's very easy for them to bully you into a plea deal because the prosecutors can just delay the legal proceedings, and you still have to be held until the proceedings are resolved. I'm still 90+% confident he's going to get out on bail or bond and have a really fun case to fight. We don't know how fun because we haven't seen charging documents or police reports yet, right? But,
if we can't
get that soon.
If we can't get it set up, maybe we'll try to get it to where he'll just call you, and you can just set it up where we can all hear the conversation.
Yeah,
because really, I told him he paid for the call, and so I just let him talk the whole time because it's his call. I only ask questions. I wanted to know, are you being physically hurt? And let him talk. He's got a lot to say, and so I told him, I said, we'll set up a time when we can get him on the show and have him
Yeah,
talk
this
from
is going to be a really interesting story, but we're focused on getting attorneys to him so that he can get bailed out. I think I'm just there's no. I mean, he has guns, can always be used as an excuse to deny bail. But in this case, I don't think there's nothing threatening or credible. Who knows? Who knows? But even if it is, it's so minor. Like in my case with the shotgun, I publicly brandished a shotgun. I had guns. I'm a public threat. Okay, fine. If he, but once I did 4 months, we resolved it. I ended up with a plea and got out. I think in his case, it's even a thinner excuse to hold him, and it should be he should be out on bail.
It's
within a month. But,
I know how you feel, Adam, about the Constitution. All right, but even if you are somebody that believes in the Constitution, it's still being denied due process. Of course,
yes. No, due process as given a token nod in the Constitution is something that should be respected, and the Constitution is a minimal standard of what we should be capable of as Americans of providing the accused in our society with due process. With that said, CJ, we will be updating everybody. Hopefully we get CJ or we get Steven on here live from jail and tomorrow or the next day. And CJ, take us home.
AdamVersusTheMan.com is the website for all of the fun things that we do here at Adam versus the Man. You can help support our show by going and clicking the Patreon button, where $1, $5, $10, or $50 a month will get you access into our private producers chat, compared to our public Telegram chat, which again is t.me/Adam versus the Man. If you want to help support the show in a different way, you can always go to our merchandise store, where, again, if you click the latest, you're going to see things like buttons, backpacks, coffee mugs, and my new personal favorite, the Freedom Clock, where the time is always on freedom. And I can't wait for that one. And again, our producer club members and better patrons, you get 15% off and free shipping. And that tends to be pretty quick, although we do have a backlog I got to go through. I've been in talks with WooCommerce and Printful. There's some, COVID things going on, and it's, just give us a minute on the shipping while the politic of these, things get worked out. So last but not last, still next on the list, Cigar Federation. We're promo code Adam10, Adam ADAM1010. I think I messed that up like Joe Biden today. Man, come on, man. I'm not the thing. I'm not Jim. Like, I'm not Jim. Cigar Federation, JSK Nugs, get them there. Get them plenty. Please help us out. Garden of Freedom on Instagram, where you can see puppies, kittens, friends, family, the softer side of Gardenia, the lovely side of Gardenia, where, again, I think that's the coolest part that I've seen in the upgrade so far. What it represents is like, I'm not connected to the grid electronically. So, and then let's see, we got the crypto.
Finger to the man.
And again, if you like that one, if you like to get yourself one of those fancy dancy windmill turbines there, Go Green Energy is the place to go for that. And the Crypto 6 website's still down. And don't forget to help support Jim's GoFundMe. And that's pretty much it, I think. Did I get them? Did I get them all?
Yeah, I was thinking if there was a church that had solar panels arranged in a cross, right, on their roof. If I had the opportunity to do something big like that, I would arrange my solar panels to make a middle finger to be a big middle finger to the man. And with that, peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness. Wait, here we are, choosing some happiness.
Smoke weed every day. The button didn't work. Sorry, Adam.
Peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.